Hi, my name's Alex Lillyart, and welcome to One Mic, One Wheel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to One Mic, One Wheel, the show where we talk all things sim racing and motorsport related. I hope you guys enjoyed the last episode with Alan Cavigno, addressing some controversial topics, and was very well rounded as a character. And I think he was able to get some things off his chest, which is always good. And I hope you guys enjoyed hearing everything getting cleared up. But we're back again with another commentator in the box. I have with me today Alex Lillyart. Alex, you're very welcome. I'm very pleased to have you on.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to be here, and hopefully I can answer some nice questions about some topics that some people don't know about.
So, Alex, how did you initially become interested in motorsport?
It started all the way back I can tell you the very first F1 race I watched was the 1995 Italian Grand Prix at Monza, which Johnny Herbert won after Schumacher and Hill crashed. So showing me age there a little bit. So I've been sort of interested in the sport from a very young age, and it's sort of just one of those that's just never gone away. I mean, I was amazed by the commentary by Murray Walker that got me into it, and I think like most British people as well, the first driver I was a fan of was Damon Hill.
So, have you got any particular favourite moments from motorsport history that got you hooked?
I think Damon Hill winning the championship at Japan in '96 with the famous Murray Walker line of "I've got to stop now because I've got a lump in my throat." I think that was quite cool as well. Hamilton obviously winning, passing Glock at the very end in 2008. And I think a couple of the recent Canadian Grand Prix, I think the one with Button where we went from last to first a couple of times, and the race was, I think, something like 4.5 hours old. You know, those races are those sort of the races that you just never forget because they're just so iconic for so many reasons.
So, then how did you get started into league racing, and what's been your experience so far?
Well, league racing for me started back in 2011 when I actually signed up to the old, well, it was known as AOR, but back then it was ARL. And for 2011 to 2013, I sort of raced sort of competitively in that. I took a break from 2014 and most of 2015, and then when I came back, I did some sort of low key league racing there. Met up with some people that I used to race with before and sort of rekindled those friendships. And then probably from 15 to 16 is when I sort of swung from being a racer into a commentator.
So, you were also one of the founding members of TMC, which has been around for a long time. So, why did you and Richie decide to set up that league?
This was something that we sort of wanted to do for a couple of months. It was, I think, towards the end of 2015, just coming into the beginning of 2016, and me, Richie, and a lot of the other drivers that sort of formed that first sort of year. We was all racing in another league as well. The racing was good; it was okay, but we didn't have a commentator. We didn't have the races streamed on YouTube. The rule set as well was a bit Mickey Mouse. There was a lot of rules and regulations that we didn't agree with. And so me and Richie sort of formed this sort of breakaway championship, took a lot of the drivers with us, including the owner of the league we was racing in, and said, look, there's a seat for you as well. We just want to expand this league we're currently racing in, because at the time, going into 2016, that's when a lot of these esports leagues sort of really came up and really went a go with it. So we wanted to do the podium interviews, we wanted to do the live streams, we wanted to do the proper race distances and do it all professional. So I think towards the end of 2015 and into 16, we sort of went away and we came up with, you know, the cars and drivers, whoever wanted to be in a basic rule set as well, a sort of a format with times and dates of races. And the league took off from there, really. The first season we did it, it was very basic. We were very much into it. But going into the second season and then onwards as well, the league continued to grow and grow into what it is now.
Then after all that, you ended up leaving TMC after about a year. So, can you elaborate as to why you ended up leaving TMC?
There was multiple reasons for it. The first one was my work hours had changed. All of our races were, of course, weekday at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and I was finding myself more often than not working at that time. So my active role as a co-commentator sort of dwindled away. So I was sort of left in the background to sort of do the admin work, do the league tables, the rules, look at the incident reports and something. And it was a case of, you know, it would start to build up because I'd be unavailable for 2, 3 days. So I'd have 5 or 6 hours worth of work, which I really don't want to do, you know, 2 or 3 times a week, certainly after, you know, an 8, 9, 10, 11 hour shift. Also, the other reason leaving for TMC as well was me and Richie went into this 50-50. We agreed from day one, we own the league 50-50. All decisions, all agreements, all disagreements, all problems would be sorted out by me and Richie. And if we couldn't reach an agreement, nothing would be done. It wouldn't be a case of, I want to go this way, you want to go that way. Well, you're not happy, so we'll do that anyway. And that started to creep in with Richie. He started turning around and saying, right, I know we've already got 3 tiers, but I want a 4th tier and a 5th tier. And I was like, look, mate, you've got to hold on here, because that's a commentary that I need to do every night and I'm not available. And it's more paperwork for me. It's easy for you, Richie. All you do is commentate and set up the YouTube channel. I do everything in the background, which people didn't realise. And so it got to a point where towards the end of the second season, about halfway through the second season, I was starting to become disillusioned with it. I felt that the sort of the control and sort of the power that, or half of the power that I had, was dwindling away, and it was sort of turning into like it's Richie's league and I'm just there to do the background crap that people don't really notice. So I think with about 4 or 5 races to go, I announced on social media and to the league that I'm leaving. And I put up a goodbye video as well. It was just like me going around and on the racetrack and basically saying goodbye to TMC, good luck to Richie in the league. There's going to be a new social media accounts because I was in charge of the Twitter one. Keep invested in TMC. It's a fantastic thing. It's going to continue to grow. And then about a week after I left, Richie contacted me to say, oh, you still owe prize money for certain people, which I did sort of agree on, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and say this was completely sprung on me. I did agree to pay a percentage of the prize money for the end of that season. I agreed before I left and I agreed afterwards. And then about 2 weeks after I left, I noticed on the letterheading that the league owners had been changed to league owner Richie Davey. So he'd taken my name off it, and my goodbye video to everyone on TMC had also been deleted, which I thought was a right kick in the you-know-what. You know, it's basically just scrubbing everything I've done out of the history books like I wasn't there from day one. And so I refused to pay the prize money, which only totaled to about £35, £40. But I thought, why should I pay this money, even though I've agreed to, when you've basically just erased me from history? And I felt hurt by that because, you know, me and Richie set up this league. We were mates to start off with, but that sort of professional friendship broke down in the second season and then just completely obliterated after that. We have spoken since a couple of times. Wounds have seemed to have been healed. But by and large, the experiences I had at the beginning of the league was fantastic. And then towards the end, it almost became mature and I wasn't enjoying it. And then to have all that happen after I left as well was just, yeah, it was a right kick in the you-know-what. You go on the website now, TMC official, whatever the hell it is, and you scroll through the page, it's got like previous champions and Hall of Famers, and somewhere on there it will say league founder or league owner, and it'll be Richie. It might have changed now because he's left, but if you look up there for the league founders or anything like that, my name won't be there, which is pretty bad, really, because I helped found that league. So yeah, it wasn't a good way to end, but you know, you live and learn and you move on.
So then, when and how did you make the jump into commentary?
It was literally for TMC. That was it. I did a few for the previous league on 2015. We used to do short races, you know, 5 lappers, 25%, it's that sort of thing. If I retired or crashed early for whatever reason, I'd then just sit there, and instead of watching the car goes around, I thought, well, there's a few other people at the race as well and listening, so I might as well just do a bit of commentary for a couple of laps. And it just sort of evolved from there. I've always been quite capable of sitting here and rattling off the words. I don't feel under pressure or anything like that, and I always know what I'm going to talk about. So making the transition into basically being a sort of a part-time league racer into owning a league and commentating on it as well, for me it felt like a smooth transition. And as the years and the seasons have gone by and working with other leagues as well, I just felt myself grow more in confidence, and I feel very confident, you know, being a commentator more than I am a racer.
So I think this would be kind of rather unusual in the commentary scene, but you yourself, you prefer to fly solo, so to speak. So why is it that you prefer to do solo commentaries?
I find it easier to get my point across when I want to, when I have to. Co-commentary for me, I feel stifled is the right word to describe it. There's been plenty of times, obviously, when with Richie and TMC we co-commentated, and I've done a few co-coms as well. I did a Christmas special with Alan Cavey, I think a couple of years ago. And even then, that was just a short race. I just felt that when I wanted to say something, or I've seen something, or there's something I need to talk about, I've got to wait for the other guy to, stop talking before I can get my point across. And 9 times out of 10, whatever I've noticed or whatever I've wanted to said now longer, it's not applicable because that moment has passed. And I don't want to sit there and talk about something that happened on lap 12 when we're on lap 14. I like to get my point across straight away. And the freedom behind it as well. I can say and do what I want. I have no distractions. I have no one around me. I'm free to express myself how I want. And that's the way I like it to stay. I've been offered opportunities to do co-coms in other leagues in the last few months, and I've politely but flatly refused. Co-commentary for me, personally, it doesn't work. I like the freedom of doing it my way when I want.
So what would you say is the most enjoyable thing about doing commentary?
It's getting to know the drivers. It really is. And I always make a point of whatever league I'm in, whatever tier I'm commentating on, I always ask that put me in the group chat as well. You won't see a lot of me in there because I'm just a commentator. I'm not getting get involved in racing disputes or anything like that. But it's nice to see how the drivers react and the way they conduct themselves on the track, and also how they react and conduct themselves off the track. And I can usually gauge, what people's personalities are like, and it sometimes reflects onto the track as well. You see someone in a group chat that sometimes is a bit spiky, a bit argumentative, likes to think, his way is the right way, and it can sometimes reflect on the track with his style of driving, very combative, very aggressive, maybe nudging cars around here, there, and everywhere. So it's nice to get to know the people involved, because but it's not just cars going around the track. There is someone on the other end of it, someone who could be any age from anywhere in the world, and it's nice to get to know them on a personal level, so I know who I'm talking about when I'm commentating on certain people. I can almost feel like I'm commentating on a mate.
And then on the flip side of that, what would you say is the most difficult thing about doing commentary?
Keeping focused when there's not a lot going on. Some leagues I've been in, the numbers have been low. The viewers have been low as well. There's been times when I've done commentary for league races and we've had less than 10 people turn up. And you've got to sit there for an 18-minute qualifying session, then a 50% distance race. And sometimes after about 4 or 5 laps, not a lot of action going on, and you can sort of predict there's not going to be a lot of action. So finding things to talk about is a challenge. I do take little mini breaks, maybe 3 or 4 during each race, if you like, just to grab a bit of water or stretch my legs for 30 seconds, or just to, because there is literally nothing going on, just mute my mic for a minute and just sit here and watch the action. But like I said, there's always something to talk about. If there's nothing on track to talk about, you can reiterate the drivers and the championship standings. You can talk about strategy, different tyres, the weather. There's always so much going on rather than just the action on track, that it takes a lot for me to sit there and be actively bored during a race.
So then you were also a commentator for ILR. So what was your experience of commentating ILR, and then why did you decide to leave after a little while?
We'll address the issue of why I left first. My work hours were changing. I now work permanent nights, which means I'm unavailable Monday through to Thursday. That's a choice I made due to various reasons, chiefly being more money. So I had to give up my ILR free spot because that was on a Thursday, which was a shame because I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think ILR were quite happy with the way I was conducting and performing myself as well in the commentary booth. So it was a shame I had to leave. The other reason for it as well was my mental health had sort of declined around about November, December, January time. I wasn't in a particularly good place. I know I'm not the only commentator out there to suffer from things like anxiety and depression. So I felt that taking a complete break from not only ILR but everything sort of commentary, all of the commentary combined, I just needed that break away for a few months. I'm pleased to say I'm better now. I'm not perfect, but I'm certainly getting better. It's just one of those things that when the pressure and the expectation does mount on you, sometimes you can feel like you're about to crack. As for my experiences in ILR, yeah, fond memories, fond memories. I did 2 years or 2 seasons of driving in ILR 3, and then after the second one, made that transition over to the microphone. And yeah, the league itself, it's run very well. It's very popular. I'd probably put it behind AOR in terms of skill set and popularity. And I think most people say that as well. And it's great to see that league continuing going from strength to strength. The owners have done a fantastic job, and it's a thoroughly professional setup as well. And that appeals to me.
So I know Paul McGuinness wanted to know, was him scoring points the highlight of that season?
It's the highlight of every season. No, it wasn't the highlight of the season, but bless Paul. I mean, I'd raced with him for 2 years in ILR3, so I knew what he was about anyway. I knew he was a quick driver, and ILR3 probably, for the year I did the commentary, was the tier for him. It just became apparent by about the sixth or seventh race that he was either slow at a track and would trundle around in 12th or 13th, or be ferociously quick and be challenging for a top five, but then trip over other people's accidents. And it seemed to be a common curse that if he was competitive, he'd be involved in an accident, but if he was uncompetitive, he would be fine, but he'd be nowhere near the points. And so there was a running joke, sort of started around about, I think, round 6 or 7, will he ever score a point? Because he is a driver. And certainly in that tier for that season, that should have been regularly challenging for points. And so it was a case of, will he ever score a point? When will he get it? How many will he get? Will he end the season on 0? And I can remember with about a lap to go at Silverstone, I think he was in 11th, correct me if I'm wrong, and the guys ahead of him had picked up multiple time penalties. And I never check the race director. I never check it, even if I know that certain people have certain penalties. I like the surprise and the suspense of when people finish the race to see if they move up and down the order. So I knew that Paul had half a chance to sneak inside the top 10. Didn't realise how close it was. So when he crossed the line and got bumped up to 10th, I genuinely was happy for him, and I knew he was too, because he struggled so much in that first half of the season. And I think that might have been one of the last races I did for Isla. And I did look back at the results, I think, after the season was finished, and noticed he did pick up a few more points as it went on. So it was nice to finally see him get that final point, because up until that point, he thoroughly deserved it.
So overall, what's been your favourite series to commentate on?
Um, it's a difficult one. I mean, games wise, I think 2018 has probably been the best for what we've got to use as terms of sitting there spectating on the side. Very similar to 2017, I know, but 2018's got less bugs and glitches in it, so there's more randomness to each race. As for seasons, it's a difficult one, because I remember when my second turn of commentating with PSF1, I did season 7 to 10 with them, and I'm now back for season 12 and so forth. And I thoroughly enjoyed that and got to know the drivers as well. And that's more of a relaxed, sort of family-friendly atmosphere. I liked ILR due to the professionalism of it, and everything was crisp and clean. And to be honest, I enjoyed my 2 seasons with TMC as well, especially being a league owner and a commentator as well. That was something just slightly different. And yeah, it was. It's difficult to pick one, but all 3 leagues that I've commentated on have been different for all 3 very different reasons.
Is there any racing series that you haven't yet commentated on but you'd love to try?
I haven't done GT Sport yet, and that's because I really haven't played the game for the last few months. I've done Project Cars 2 with the Indy cars and with a few other categories out there as well, but I've mainly focused on F1. And to be honest, I reckon I'll just stick to doing the F1 games. That's where I feel more comfortable. I know the cars, I know the circuits, I know the strategies, I know the tyres, and it's easier for me to turn up 30 seconds before a qualifying session starts, drag out the various notes that I've got, and start to rattle on with what I've got to talk about. Other games and other car categories gives that challenge to me. I know a little bit about IndyCar, of course. I watch it. I know a bit about touring cars and LMP1 cars as well, but not as much as I do about Formula One. So I like to sort of stick and stay where I feel more comfortable. The more comfortable I am, the better performance I give.
So you mentioned there that you take notes. How important is it that you take notes before you do commentary?
It is important, because you want to know what you're talking about. I mean, my notes usually come down to previous results at that circuit. Also a track map with all the corner numbers or names around it. I've also got the notes for both the drivers and constructors standings, recent results, who's in what team as well. ILR was a bit of a challenge, because obviously they bring reserve drivers in as well, so I needed to know where they were going. So it's not like I'm sitting here with 20 or 30 pages. I've got enough to get. I've got the basics right. I've got the standings. I've got teams and drivers. I've got strategy options. I've got previous results, what to expect, challenges of different corners, and I've got the track map with the various DRS zones. All of that I usually rattle off in the qualifying session, as well as obviously talking about the laps that are going on. And then I can just focus purely on the race when that starts. Is it important to have? I think it is. It's not the be all and end all. I know a lot of the tracks off by heart anyway. But I feel that just having that information there, it just helps a little bit, because there are times when you do forget a few things. And it's just nice to quickly glance down at a certain piece of paper to remind yourself what you're going to be talking about.
So, would you ever want to return or consider returning to any of the leagues that you've left?
Yes, long story short, yes, I would love to go back to ILR. Unfortunately, they did offer me the ILR free position back a few months ago, when they changed the times around, moving ILR Sunday. But about 2 or 3 days before that, I'd agreed to return to PSF1 because their commentator was leaving to do league racing. And I didn't want to be that guy to turn around to a league and go, yep, I'll come back. And then 2 days later, sorry, I've had a better offer, off I go. So maybe things will happen in the future. I won't stay with PSF1 for the rest of my life, that's for sure. I will move on again eventually. Would I return to ILR? Yes, I would, and hopefully they would have me back as well. As for TMC, funny enough, I've been speaking to the new league owner, Daniel Morris, I believe. He's taken over control at some point recently, and he got in touch with me a couple of weeks ago to say, look, would you consider returning to TMC solely as a commentator? The only spot they've got available to me is the third tier, which I'm not interested in personally on the Friday. I'd only want either the top 2 tiers, and Daniel's agreed as well. He said I'd put you straight into D1. So I will probably have to decline that offer as well, mainly due to my working hours. I'm unavailable during the week. A lot of it is weekend work. I never close the door on any league that I've worked for or done commentary on. Wounds heal, you move over, you get over things, you move on. I certainly have no issues with ILR, and I certainly have no issues with TMC anymore. But I'm happy at the moment with PSF1, but you don't know what the future might hold. I might look into getting in touch with AOR. There's other leagues out there, PSGL. There's loads of leagues out there. There's loads of different options. I might move off of F1 and move to GT Sport or back to Project Cars. Depends how comfortable I feel, if I want to broaden my horizons or if I want to stay with PSF1 for now. But yeah, I never close the door on anything. I'm happy to go wherever a league needs me, as long as I feel that I'll do a good job for that particular league.
And finally, Alex, what are your future aspirations?
I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now. I'm 32, so I'm certainly not old enough now to, turn around and say, oh, well, there's nothing for me. I'm getting on now. I'm in my 30s. I might as well just leave it for the younger commentators, those that are 18, 19, 20 years old. But I think the dream for anyone that's a sort of an esports commentator, if I want to use that phrase, is I'd love to be commentating F1 for Sky Sports in the future. And, I think everyone would love to give that answer. Realistically, I think that ship sailed. Personally, I'm just happy at the moment to provide a good commentary, I feel, for the leagues that I work in. Would I want to branch into real motorsports? Well, yeah. I mean, there was an opportunity that myself and others had to maybe link up with the French F3 real life commentary team a couple of years ago, but you needed to speak fluent French and the money package wasn't good enough. So I said no. I mean, I might look around to maybe touring cars or Formula Ford or British F3, something like that. As long as it works for me, I'm happy to travel. And if the money's good, I'll give it a go. But for now, I'm quite comfortable doing what I'm doing. But for sure, if Sky Sports phoned me up one day and said, look, do you fancy coming up and doing a session? I'd be up there in 30 seconds, as would anyone, I feel.
So unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Alex, thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavours.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be on.
So that has been it for episode 18 of One Mic, One Wheel. If you have missed it on Twitter, I have said that I am ending season 1 on episode 20, which is going to be a big episode, so keep an eye out for that next week. So that has been it for episode 18. As I said, join us next time when another member of the sim racing community will come and talk about their experiences and their journey through esports. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time out for episode 19. Thank you, and goodbye.